Yes. 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 Oh. Yes. 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 Oh, yes, yes, yes. Oh, yes, yes, yes. We have arrived. We are the Hathors, and we are very pleased to be called upon to bring you this bedtime story of ours. Once upon a time, there were two best friends, and their names were Grace and Christina. Grace was absolutely enthralled with the ballet the first time that she saw a performance on television. She begged her parents to let her take ballet classes. And at first, her parents were quite reluctant to let her take classes in ballet because they knew how physically challenging it could be to perform those particular dance moves. But Grace persisted and begged and even got her friend Christina to sign up for classes so that she could use that as leverage. She said to her parents, even Christina's mom and dad let her take ballet, and you know how strict they are. Grace's parents knew that they couldn't keep saying no forever, and so they eventually gave in. And Grace and Christina were enrolled in Ms. Valaskova's ballet class. The girls had trouble with her name, and so they just called her Ms. V. She was an excellent teacher, a dancer herself, who had performed in Russia and had become a fantastic ballerina in her own right. She always loved having new students who were filled with enthusiasm and joy and who actually wanted to be there. She loved having the students who were not being forced to take ballet by their overbearing parents. So Grace and Christina were welcomed into Ms. V's class with open arms. And as stern as she could be at times, she loved the girls. Grace showed great potential from the very first class because she had been watching the best ballet dancers in the world as often as she could, studying them, tuning into them, picking up on every nuance, including their facial expressions. She was a student of the ballet, and it showed. Christina, on the other hand, was just doing this for the sake of her best friend getting closer to her. They liked to do almost everything together. And so she had to work a lot harder at finding the steps, mastering the movements. And yet she worked very hard because she wanted to excel in the same way that her friend did. They began to become a bit competitive, actually, which wasn't bad for their friendship, but it wasn't great for it either. It is nice to have someone to inspire you and encourage you in life, but when you're in competition with someone else for being the best at something, it can put a strain on an otherwise beautiful friendship. And that's what began to happen with Grace and Christina. And when Ms. V told the class that they would be putting on a performance for the parents and aunts and uncles and cousins and friends and whoever else wanted to attend, that's when the competition got real, because there was a lead role in their little production. And Grace and Christina both wanted it. Grace was the natural choice for the lead. She was excelling in every way. She was even naturally taller and more slender and flexible than the other girls her age. But Christina was determined to be in the running for the lead role, and she made that clear to Ms. V as they practiced and they rehearsed, and eventually it came down to Grace as the lead, Christina as the understudy. Now, there was a new competition for Grace, and it was a competition with herself. And she knew that there would be people there watching her. And since she saw herself as someone who would be dancing for the rest of her life, she knew that this was one of many performances that she would put on for audiences. She wanted to get off on the right foot, so to speak, and have her performance be absolutely perfect, showing her parents that they had made the right decision and that they should continue to support her in every imaginable way as the ballerina that she was becoming. And so she pushed herself. She practiced on her own, in her room, in the kitchen, in the living room, everywhere that she could, even on the playground at school during recess. She would be practicing and practicing. And Christina would be watching and wondering how long this phase was going to last, whether they could ever get back to just playing and being kids, talking about boys, and doing all of the fun things that they used to do. But it didn't seem like this would be a phase for Grace at all. As the date of the big performance got closer and closer, Grace was pushing herself harder and harder. And eventually, she fell. And when she fell, she broke her leg. She was devastated. And her parents were convinced now that they had made a mistake in letting her take ballet classes in the first place. And Christina stepped into the role of the lead in their class's performance. And Grace sat in the audience that night with her cast and her crutches and her parents and Christina's parents, and she was obviously distraught. She was not there to support her friend at all. She was there to hope that everyone would be missing her. She was there to see if Christina could even come close to giving the performance that she would give. She needed to feel good about herself. She needed to know that she was the best. And so she watched and hoped that Christina's performance would be mediocre at best. But her friend surprised her. Having the audience there pulled more energy through her. It brought her into a place of joy to be able to share this with others. And all of that joy radiated from inside of her as she performed in lead role. And the crowd responded. There was a standing ovation. Not from Grace, however. She remained with a scowl on her face and arms crossed. She almost couldn't believe that the show could possibly go on without her. And that night in her room, as she lay in bed, she had nothing but hateful thoughts and feelings towards her friend. And even the rest of her classmates. And certainly for Ms. V, who she thought should postpone the performance until her leg healed. And none of this was good for her. And so over the course of the next several weeks, she had setbacks in the healing process. Things were not going as they were supposed to. And meanwhile, Christina was continuing to dance and enjoy the ballet even more now that she had no one to compete with. Now that she could just dance for fun, for the expression of joy that she liked so much to radiate from within her. And seeing Christina enjoy herself so much created even more bitterness and resentment within Grace, and her leg continued to heal very slowly, much more slowly than the doctor had hypothesized it would. And she could not even watch the performances of the ballet on television anymore. It was too painful for Grace to sit and watch her classmates. And so she got further and further away from the dance that had brought her so much joy before she broke her leg. It was hard for her to find any joy in life with her cast on. She would not enjoy her food. She didn't sleep much. She went to school and kept her head down. Didn't interact much with the other children. And Christina would try to make her feel better. She would try to get through to her, the friend that she loved so much. She would attempt to play in other ways with Grace. But Grace wasn't having it. The jealousy within her was enormous at this point, as she saw Christina thriving in her practice of ballet. And eventually, Christina gave up. She stopped trying to help her friend feel better, and instead she just went about playing with the other girls, went to ballet class, and generally enjoyed the life that she had. Finally, Grace's parents could see how much this whole situation was affecting their poor daughter's emotional state. And they brought Grace to a therapist. Grace did not want to go see a therapist. She thought it was humiliating. And she objected the whole way over in the car. But then when her parents got her there, they convinced her that there was a link between how she was feeling and how her leg was not healing. And this was all that Grace needed to hear, because she could not wait for that leg of hers to heal. So she got on her crutches and she went into the therapist's office. Therapist was a kind, middle-aged man named Jonathan Tuttle. And she called him John. And he liked that. He didn't care about titles like doctor. And he listened to Grace as she told her story. She told him everything about how much she loved ballet and how much she was disappointed when she broke her leg and could not perform and show everyone how good she was. And Dr. Tuttle listened and was compassionate. He empathized. And he had no judgment whatsoever for her, even though she didn't support her friend, even though she had hateful feelings towards Christina. He didn't see any of that as wrong, didn't tell her to change the way that she felt about the situation. He listened, he held space for her, he had compassion for her, and he empathized, and he talked to her about experiences from his own life of disappointment. how he wanted to be a great athlete, but that he was never as good at baseball or basketball as his friends. And how devastating it was to see them making the teams in junior high school and high school, and how he had to sit and watch them. And finally, someone understood Grace. Someone else could relate to what she was going through. And this was a huge breakthrough for her. And then Dr. Tuttle surprised her by telling her that it was actually a very good idea for her to feel her emotions, to make sure that she was being very honest with herself about how she felt and not trying to hide it from anyone. And he told her that you can feel that hate and that resentment towards Christina without telling her that you're feeling that way, without making it about her. Because he understood that underneath all of that was so much love that wanted to come out, and that Christina would be able to feel that love coming from Grace again. But that Grace had to go through the feelings that she had inside of her first in order to get to that love. So he told her how to access those emotions on her own when she was alone in her bedroom, and how to feel into them, to clear them and release them. And how she could then feel the love once again for her friend, for her parents, and for the ballet. And then Dr. Tuttle gave her permission to forgive herself for pushing her body too far. Because he realized that the hardest part in all of this for Grace was that she saw her broken leg as her own fault. And then Grace wept right there in his office, sitting on the couch. She wept, and he sat next to her with the tissues and handed them to her one at a time until she was all cried out. And when she was in a very calm state, Dr. Tuttle reminded her of how she felt when she first saw the ballet being performed on television that very first time. And he helped her to tune into that feeling inside of herself. After she had given herself that feeling of relief and release, she was once again able to tap in to the love within her, the excitement and the joy that she felt, that the ballet helped her to uncover within her. And so Grace went home that night from his office, and she had so many tools to help herself with the emotional healing that she needed to do. And as she cleared those emotions out of her energy field, she could feel once again the love for her friend and the love for ballet. And she asked her parents the next day if she could go to ballet class just to watch. And as she watched her friend excel in this gift of dancing, she smiled. She had nothing but positive encouragement for Christina. She imagined how far Christina would go in her dancing career. And she focused on what it would feel like to be out there again, dancing, playing, laughing, creating, and feeling joy from within her. And as she did this, her leg began to heal. It was almost instantaneous. The cast was off in the next couple of weeks. She got her strength back. She felt stronger and more nimble than ever as she practiced on her own. Not because she was trying to be the best, not because she was trying to catch up with Christina and her progress, but Grace was dancing for the love of dancing again, not caring that there was no recital coming up, not wondering how far she would go in her career as a dancer, but just enjoying the moment of being able to move her body again in the way that she took for granted just a few months ago. And so she returned to Ms. V's class, and she poured her heart into every movement. She fell head over heels in love again with the ballet. And she and Christina became closer than ever because of the experience they had together. She recognized how Christina had stayed by her side. She recognized what a good friend she had in Christina. And she knew that from now on, if they were ever in a position where they were going for the same part in a production, they would support and encourage each other. Because Grace had already gone through the worst experience she could possibly imagine when it came to a recital or a production of any kind. So she was no longer afraid of not being the best. She was no longer afraid of someone else getting all of the attention because she'd already experienced it. And she could let it go. She saw Dr. Tuttle a few more times. It was clear to him that she had gotten everything that she needed from him. And so she discontinued her therapy sessions, and instead she became a kid again. And at recess, she and Christina would play sometimes and dance sometimes. And sometimes they would laugh and talk about boys. She took all of the pressure off of herself. And her parents could see this. And they could see that ballet was actually a very good thing for their daughter. And they recognized the growth that had occurred because she was given the opportunity to get hurt, fail, go down that particular rabbit hole, feel her emotions, and come back up from it stronger. And so her parents decided they would never try to protect her from those types of experiences again. And Grace and Christina continued to dance. They wound up going to the same performing school for the arts. They both became professional ballerinas. And they stayed the best of friends throughout the remainder of their lives. We are the Hathors. We thank you for listening to our bedtime story. And we wish you a very fond good night's sleep.